Hello everyone, and welcome back to Guyana News Updates Recap. We're covering a story that has gripped the nation and sparked widespread calls for justice. The tragic death of 11-year-old Adriana Younge. Her body was discovered in a pool at the Doubleday Hotel after she was reported missing during a family outing there. Today, we have some significant updates on the ongoing investigation into Adriana's death. The government has announced that a Canadian homicide expert, retired Royal Canadian Mounted Police member Leonard McCaushen, will be joining the probe. Mr. McCaushen is described as a trained and qualified homicide and suspicious death investigator with over 30 years of experience, including more than 20 years with the Serious Crimes Branch in the Major Crimes Unit of the Canadian Mounted Police. The Ministry of Home Affairs stated that he brings a wealth of training, qualifications, and experience to the investigation. The Guyana Police Force has also recently released preliminary findings from the forensic examination conducted on Adriana. They felt compelled to share these findings to counter what they described as a barrage of misinformation being peddled in the social media. According to the police statement, the preliminary forensic examination found no evidence of sexual assault, noting that her external genitalia were examined and found unremarkable with her hymen intact. The examination also found that her soft tissues and skeletal structure were free of traumatic injury. Findings consistent with drowning were observed, including a residual cone of foam in her nostrils and oral cavity, washerwoman, changes on her hands and soles from prolonged immersion, liquid in the sphenoid sinus, an air space in the brain, and liquid in the lungs. The police stated that the finding regarding foam dispels any contention about cotton wool in the child's nose. The skin was found to be intact and free from ante-mortem injuries, meaning she did not receive injuries before her death. While a post-mortem examination carried out earlier by 3 foreign independent pathologists also concluded that Younge died by drowning, toxicology tests are still pending. The police have stated that a comprehensive toxicological study of blood and gastric contents is being conducted by National Medical Services laboratories in the United States, and tissue specimens are undergoing histological analysis by Mount Sinai's board-certified forensic and diagnostic pathologists in the United States. Water samples from the pool where the child was found have also been sent overseas for testing. The purpose of the toxicology analysis is to detect substances that may have contributed to the death. DNA samples from the hotel's owner and Adriana have also been sent to Mount Sinai in New York for advanced testing. The case has seen tension between the police and the family and their attorneys. The family of Adriana Younge has been pushing for an international probe of her death, expressing dissatisfaction with the investigations by the Guyana Police Force. Following a meeting with the police commissioner, the family and their attorneys complained about a lack of information on critical issues. Questions raised by attorney Dexter Todd that allegedly went unanswered included who was heading the investigation, whether homicide had been ruled out, details about the samples sent overseas, and the availability of the preliminary autopsy report. The police responded that any information not provided was withheld only to safeguard the integrity of the investigation. The police force has also faced criticism over its initial handling of the missing child report. They initially issued a false statement claiming the girl was seen leaving the hotel in a vehicle before admitting the information was incorrect. This incident, along with questions surrounding the discovery of her body in the pool after searches were reportedly conducted and came up empty, contributed to widespread protests. In a related development, a 25-year-old contractor, Dion Jeffrey, has filed a $100 million lawsuit against the state for wrongful detention. Jeffrey claims he was falsely linked by the police to Adriana Younge's disappearance on the day she was reported missing. He states that this incorrect association led to him losing construction contracts valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars and caused him humiliation and embarrassment. The investigation is described by the police as ongoing, with all leads and evidence being pursued, and oversight maintained at a senior level to ensure thoroughness and impartiality. There are many layers to this complex and sensitive case, with ongoing forensic tests, an international expert joining the probe, and legal action being taken. For a full breakdown of these developments and more details from the sources, watch the rest of this video. And please, if you want to stay updated on this and other important news, remember to subscribe to the Guyana News Updates Recap YouTube channel.
Okay, let's dive straight in. There's some pretty big news breaking in the Adriana Younge case out of Guyana.
Yes, significant development. The Ministry of Home Affairs announced they're bringing in an outside expert.
That's right. Leonard McCaution, a Canadian homicide expert, retired RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
And not just anyone over 30 years experience, more than 20 of that in the serious crimes branch. So, quite a background.
Definitely brings a lot of weight. And this comes, 2 weeks after 11-year-old Adriana was found?
Found dead in the pool at the Doubleday Hotel, yes. And this move, bringing McCaution in, it really signals something, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like a response partly to the family's dissatisfaction.
Absolutely. They've been very vocal, wanting an international investigation. They have been happy with the local police handling of it.
And we should remember the initial postmortem, the one done by 3 independent foreign pathologists.
Right. They concluded drowning is the cause of death.
But even with that, there is still outstanding tests, toxicology, water samples sent overseas.
Exactly. Which is why for this deep dive, we really want to unpack what's happening now. What do these official findings tell us? And maybe more importantly, what questions are still hanging in the air?
Yeah, lots of questions remain. So let's start with what the Guyana police force has released. They put out some preliminary forensic findings.
They did, and they framed it as a way to counter, quote, misinformation spreading online, particularly on social media.
Okay, so damage control, perhaps. What were the key things they wanted to clarify?
Well, first they addressed the speculation about sexual assault. They stated clearly no evidence of that. External genitalia unremarkable, hymen intact.
Right. And no signs of physical trauma either, like injuries before death.
Correct. No traumatic injury to soft tissues or the skeleton. That was another key point they made.
So trying to directly knock down some specific, maybe lurid rumor circulating.
Precisely. And then there was the mention of foam, a residual cone of foam in her nostrils and mouth.
Okay, what does that indicate forensically?
It's often seen in drowning cases. And significantly, the police said this contradicts claims that cotton wool was found in her nose. They were very specific about that.
Interesting. So pushing back directly on certain narratives, what about the washerwoman changes? That sounds evocative.
It does. It's a standard forensic term, actually. It describes the wrinkling and softening of skin, especially hands and soles, after being submerged in water for a while.
Ah, okay. And they found that on Adriana?
Yes, they noted those changes were present, which again is consistent with prolonged immersion and therefore drowning.
So point by point, they seem to be building a case consistent with that initial drowning finding from the pathologists.
That seems to be the thrust of their preliminary release, yes. They also added a few more details.
Like what?
They said her skin was intact, no antemortem injuries, so no injuries before death. They found a tiny amount of liquid, about 1 milliliter, in the sphenoid sinus.
Which is where in the body?
It's an airspace, basically deep in the skull, behind the nose. Finding liquid there, where normally there's just air, is another indicator consistent with drowning.
And liquid in the lungs, too, presumably.
Yes, they mentioned that as well. Also consistent.
Okay, so that covers the immediate physical findings, but they're waiting on more tests from abroad, right?
Exactly. Comprehensive toxicology, looking for drugs, alcohol, poisons that's being done by NMS labs in the U.S.
Okay. And tissue samples.
Those are undergoing histological analysis, basically a microscopic examination, by pathologists at Mount Sinai, also in the U.S., looking for anything abnormal at a cellular level.
So those results could still add significant information, could confirm the drowning, or potentially complicate it.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Toxicology is key to rule out any contributing factors. After releasing these points, the police urged the public, stop spreading malicious and unfounded rumors.
Understandable from their perspective, given the sensitivity. Did they confirm the water samples from the pool were sent off too?
Yes, they confirmed that. Sent overseas for analysis, which makes sense if you're building a case around drowning.
Now, there was also some back and forth, wasn't there, about who released the initial autopsy findings first?
Ah, yes. The police pushed back against the family lawyer's claim that the police released the findings prematurely. The police statement said, actually, the family, their lawyer, and their doctor were the first ones to publicly state the drowning conclusion.
So a bit of a disagreement there about how the information got out and who controlled that initial narrative.
Seems like it. Which perhaps speaks to the underlying tension. We know the family met with the police commissioner, too.
Right. And how did that go? Reports suggested the family wasn't happy.
That's the impression, yes. They apparently left feeling they didn't get enough information, that key questions weren't answered.
What was the police rationale for holding back?
The standard reason, really protecting the integrity of the investigation. They assured the family it's ongoing, all leads pursued, senior oversight, etc.
But you can see why the family might be frustrated, especially given the criticisms leveled at the police right from the start.
Oh, absolutely. The initial handling of the missing person report, accusations they didn't take it seriously, refused to search the hotel properly, even blocked the family initially.
And the claim about false surveillance video info, that all created a difficult backdrop.
Definitely fueled public anger and distrust. And just to recap the timeline quickly, Pruitt reported missing from the pool area, initial searches empty, body found in the pool the next day. That sequence alone raises questions for many people.
Understandably. And we saw the reaction, fiery protests, the hotel damaged, both after the body was found and again after the drowning conclusion was announced.
Intense emotions. It underscores the deep impact this has had.
But it is important, I think, to reiterate that the drowning conclusion came from 3 independent foreign pathologists.
Yes, and crucially, one of them was chosen by the family.
Which does add significant weight to that finding, you'd have to say.
It certainly lends credibility, yes. Using independent experts is often vital in cases like this. And we also heard Adriana's funeral has been postponed.
Suggesting things are still very much unresolved for the family.
It seems so. Now, shifting gears slightly, there are ripple effects here beyond the main investigation.
You mean the contractor's lawsuit?
Exactly. Dion Jeffrey, a 25-year-old contractor, he's suing the state for $100 million.
$100 million? For what?
Wrongful detention. He claims police falsely linked him to Adriana's disappearance initially.
How did that happen?
Seems the police press release had incorrect information about his car, tying him to the time frame when she went missing. Even though she was later found at the hotel, the damage was done, he argues.
Wow, so he's claiming this false link ruined his reputation, his business.
That's the basis of the suit. Breach of his rights, equal protection, liberty, freedom of movement, plus false detention. He says he lost major contracts because of it.
Can you give specifics on the contracts?
The lawsuit mentions a $500,000 drainage project and another $275,000 ceiling job. He claims they were canceled because of this false association with criminality, humiliation, embarrassment, financial loss.
And his position is the police had no reasonable grounds to arrest him in the first place.
Correct. No basis, he says. Claims it was his first ever arrest. It really highlights how mistakes or inaccuracies in an investigation, especially a high-profile one, can have devastating consequences for others.
Absolutely. Okay, let's circle back to Adriana's family and their lawyers. That meeting with the police commissioner about 13 days after Adriana was found, you said they left dissatisfied.
Yes, their attorney Dexter Todd spoke afterwards. He listed quite a few questions he felt went unanswered.
What kind of questions were they asking? Basic stuff.
Pretty fundamental things, yeah. Like who's actually heading the investigation? What specifically are you investigating? Is homicide off the table? What are the details of the overseas test? When will we get results? Can we see the preliminary autopsy report?
Just basic information you'd expect a grieving family to want, especially in such a confusing situation.
Exactly. They even asked if their own expert could review the autopsy findings, but without the report. Well, that question couldn't be answered either. And the commissioner's response was just general assurances.
According to Todd, yes. Talk of a comprehensive investigation, but an inability to share specifics at that stage.
So, not much concrete information flowing their way.
It seems not. Though around this time, it was confirmed again, drowning conclusion from the independent pathologists, and also that DNA samples from the hotel owner and Adriana were sent to Mount Sinai.
Okay, DNA testing. But even that raised more questions for the family's lawyer.
Yes, Attorney Todd wanted specifics on the DNA test. And crucially, he questioned whether pool water samples were taken before the pool was drained.
That's a critical point for comparison, surely, if the water was changed or drained.
It could definitely impact the value of those samples, yes. So with all these unanswered questions, it's maybe not surprising the parents are still pushing for that international probe. And even considering a second autopsy.
That's been mentioned, yes. They clearly want more transparency, more oversight. Todd said the family understands investigations can be complex, but they want the police to explain the challenges and how these international experts, like Bakashian now, will actually help.
It really sounds like a breakdown in trust and communication, fundamentally.
It does appear that way. The fact the commissioner apparently told them to put their questions in writing maybe suggests a formal, perhaps strained channel of communication now?
Todd did mention her remains are in good condition, so the family has time to decide on burial. But the frustration is clear.
Very much so. The lack of specific answers is palpable.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. We have an ongoing complex investigation. Preliminary forensics point to drowning, matching the independent pathologist's report.
But huge BUT. Significant questions remain for the family. Deep concerns, which has now led to this Canadian expert getting involved and intense scrutiny on the local police.
And we can't ignore the fallout, like that contractor's massive lawsuit. It shows the handling of this has already had wider consequences.
Definitely. There's this clear tension, isn't there? The police needing to protect their investigation versus the family's right to know, and the public demanding transparency.
It's a difficult balance in any case, let alone one this tragic in public.
It really is. And it makes you think, doesn't it? Looking at these initial findings, the police statements, the family's reaction, what does it all tell us about the challenges of investigating these incredibly sensitive cases when everyone is watching? And looking ahead, what information, what results do you think will be absolutely crucial to finally get a clearer picture of what happened to Adriana Younge?